Fatima pressed her back against the crumbling mud wall, fighting to steady her breathing. The night sky above Kaduna glowed angry orange as distant flames devoured what once was a peaceful neighborhood church. Nearby, David crouched beside her, his hand gripping hers so tightly it hurt. They could hear the chaos swirling just beyond their hiding place. Shouts in Hausa and English, shattered glass, the crackle of fire. A mob was out there, raging through the streets, and if they found them now, a Muslim girl and a Christian youth corper huddled together, mercy would be unlikely. Fatima's heart thundered in her chest as a cluster of footsteps scuffed closer. By the dim light of the burning skyline, she saw fear in David's eyes, sweat mingling with soot on his face. He tried to peek around the edge of the wall, but Fatima pulled him back, her finger pressed to her lips. In that breathless moment, she silently prayed, "Ya Allah, protect us." At the same time, she heard David's trembling whisper of, "Jesus, help us," barely audible. Different prayers spoken in unity, rising toward the same sky. A bottle shattered somewhere, too close, and a hot wave of panic washed over Fatima. She squeezed David's hand, bracing herself. Their world had erupted into a nightmare under the Kaduna skies, and they were caught in the center of the storm. A few months earlier, the world was ordinary and calm. Fatima first saw David on a breezy afternoon, long before the unrest turned their lives upside down. She remembered that day clearly. The sun was high and the air smelled of dust and roasting corn from a street vendor's fire. David had just arrived in their compound, dragging a battered suitcase and looking travel-weary under the northern sun. He was a fresh-faced university graduate from southern Nigeria, posted to Kaduna for his National Youth Service Corps assignment as a school teacher. Fatima watched curiously from the shaded veranda as her father greeted the newcomer. Not many outsiders came to their part of town. A Christian Igbo man from the south was even more uncommon in their predominantly Muslim neighborhood. Yet here he was, standing politely with a nervous smile, addressing her father as Sir, and thanking her family for agreeing to host him during his service year. Alhaji Ibrahim, Fatima's father, was reserved but welcoming. He believed in showing hospitality even to a Christian, especially since the principal of the secondary school had personally asked him to rent out their small spare room to the young teacher. Fatima's mother, Mariam, bustled forward with a tray of cola nuts and chilled water as a traditional welcome. Fatima, shy but eager to help, quietly joined her mother to offer the refreshment. When David's eyes met Fatima's for the first time, they exchanged polite smiles. Two young people curious about each other's world, but uncertain where to begin. "Nagude." "Thank you," David said softly, mixing Hausa and English as he accepted the glass of water from Fatima's hand. His accent was different and his Hausa was limited, but the effort made Fatima smile. She replied in English, "You're welcome," careful not to let her voice carry too much excitement. She wore a light blue hijab that framed her round face, and she could feel her cheeks warm when he looked at her. Perhaps from the heat, or perhaps something more. That evening, the compound was lively. Relatives and neighbors came by to glimpse the new Corper, as Youth Codes members were called. Some came out of genuine friendliness, others out of curiosity. Fatima noticed a few of the older men eyeing David with polite distance. He was an outsider and a Christian, a combination that some in Kaduna had learned to be cautious about. But David's gentle demeanor soon eased the tension. he greeted everyone respectfully, adding a clumsy "Salamu alaikum" here and there. The neighbors chuckled at his pronunciation, returning the traditional greeting warmly, "Wa alaikum salam." In those first moments, it seemed as if he might fit in after all, differences aside. Among the onlookers was Fatima's older brother, Hassan. He lingered near the back, arms crossed over his chest, observing the newcomer with a guarded expression. At 25, Hassan had seen more of Kaduna's tensions than his younger sister. He remembered the stories of past clashes in the city, and he carried those memories cautiously. While others greeted David, Hassan simply gave a brief nod when their eyes met. Fatima sensed her brother's unease. She hoped in time Hassan would see what she saw, that David was kind and respectful. But for now, he remained wary. Over the next several weeks, an easy rhythm developed in the household. Each morning, David rose early to attend the secondary school where he taught English and basic science. In the afternoons, he would return, sometimes waving cheerfully at Fatima if she was in the yard reading or helping her mother. Fatima herself was a third-year university student, home for a break before her final semester. She often studied on a straw mat under the guava tree in the compound. David would pass by with a friendly greeting, and gradually, those greetings turned into short conversations. At first, they spoke only about simple things: the hot weather, the food, the differences between their hometowns. Fatima learned that David grew up in Enugu in the southeast in a Christian family with deep Igbo roots. He told her about the lush green of the southern forest and how strange and beautiful he found the wide open northern sky and red earth of Kaduna. In turn, Fatima shared that she had lived in Kaduna her whole life, except when away at university. She loved the city's busy markets and the way neighbors watched out for each other. But she also admitted she dreamed of seeing more of Nigeria someday. One evening, when the electricity went out, as it often did, the compound was cast in darkness. The night air was warm and alive with chirping crickets. David stepped outside his small room to find Fatima sitting on the low wall, gazing up at the sky, powdered thick with stars. Without thinking too much, he walked over and sat a respectful distance away. For a moment, they sat in silence under the sparkling Kaduna skies, each lost in thought. "The stars are so bright here," David murmured, breaking the silence. "Back home in the city, I never see this many." Fatima smiled, eyes still on the constellations above. "My mother says the sky in the north is closer to us because we live on higher ground," she said softly. "It's just an old saying, but I like the idea of it." They fell quiet again. David hesitated before asking the question that had been on his mind. "Fatima, do you ever think it's possible for people as different as us to be friends? I mean truly friends, maybe even..." He trailed off, unsure how to finish. In the dim light, he couldn't see her expression clearly, and he suddenly worried he might have overstepped. Fatima turned to him, her face gentle. "We are friends, David," she said firmly. "I know our differences, religion, background, matter in this world. But here, now, talking to you, they don't make me afraid." She paused, searching for the right words. "I think of it like the sky," she continued, gesturing above with her hand. "My father likes to say, the sky is wide enough for all birds to fly without their wings touching. There's space for everyone, for both of us." David felt a warmth in his chest at her words. I'd like to meet your father someday, he joked lightly, knowing full well he lived under the man's roof. Fatima laughed, a soft sound in the dark. He can be strict, but he has a good heart, she said. She did not add that she wasn't entirely sure how her father would feel about her sitting out in the night, talking alone with a young man. They both knew it was innocent, but appearances mattered. Reluctantly, Fatima stood. I should go in, it's late. David rose as well. Good night, Fatima, he said quietly. Good night, David. She slipped through the doorway into the house, leaving David alone under the stars. He remained a moment longer, looking up at the brilliant Kaduna sky and marveling at how, in such a short time, a place and a person so different from everything he knew had begun to feel like home. Despite the growing bond between Fatima and David, not everyone was at ease. One afternoon, as Fatima helped her mother grind peppers in the kitchen, Hassan stepped in, his expression serious. He waited until their mother left the room, then spoke in a low voice. You and the Corper. You spend a lot of time talking, he said, not meeting her eyes as he fiddled with the doorway's edge. Fatima's hands stilled on the mortar. She had expected this. He's a nice person, Bhaiya, she said gently, using the affectionate term for her brother. We just talk about school, about life. Hassan frowned. Fatima, you know how people are around here. A Muslim girl and a Christian boy being close. It will start tongues wagging. And in times like these, small things can become big trouble. His voice tightened, and Fatima heard the concern behind his stern tone. She stood up straight, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Hassan, David respects our family. He respects our faith. He hasn't done anything wrong. Hassan ran a hand over his face and fell quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his words came out softer, almost pleading. Look, I know you think I'm just being overprotective, but I remember the last crisis, Fatima. I lost a close friend in those riots. Fatima's eyes widened. Her brother barely spoke of that dark time. My friend was innocent, just walking home from school, Hassan continued quietly. But he was caught in the wrong place when people went mad over religion. I can't forget that. Fatima's throat tightened. She reached out and touched her brother's arm. I'm sorry, Bhaiya. I remember how scared everyone was then. But things have been peaceful for years now. David wasn't here for that. He's not part of those memories. Hassan sighed. Peaceful enough, yes, but it only takes one spark. He met her gaze then, his eyes earnest. Just be careful, okay? For his sake as much as yours. With that, Hassan left, leaving Fatima to ponder his warning. Later, when Fatima timidly asked her father what he thought of David, Alhaji Ibrahim simply replied that the young man was respectful and that he trusted her judgment. His gentle acceptance gave Fatima hope that others might also understand their unusual friendship. It happened on a Sunday. The morning had dawned peacefully enough, with clear blue skies and the usual quiet that settled over the city on weekends. David had left early that day to attend church services across town, promising to be back by lunchtime. Fatima had watched him go with a light heart, unaware that by midday, their world would tilt into chaos. The first sign of trouble was a plume of black smoke rising beyond the low rooftops. Fatima noticed it just after noon as she was hanging laundry in the yard. Then came distant noises, the faint clamor of shouting, a sudden bang that could only be an explosion or gunshot. Her mother rushed out to yank the sheets off the line, ushering Fatima and the younger children inside. Alhaji Ibrahim switched on his radio, and within minutes, the dire news crackled through. violent unrest had erupted in the central part of Kaduna. Reports were confusing and frightening. Some said a dispute at the market had sparked fighting between Muslim and Christian youth. Others claimed that a church in a nearby district had been attacked and that Christians retaliated. Whatever the cause, the city was unraveling into mayhem. Fatima's heart clenched with the one immediate worry: David. He was out there, somewhere in the midst of what was quickly becoming a riot. She tried calling his phone, hands shaking. No answer, only a busy tone, as the networks were jammed with panicked callers. Outside the compound walls, they could hear neighbors shouting warnings. "Sagidanku, stay in your houses, they are coming!" Through a crack in the gate, Fatima saw people running down the street. A pickup truck full of young men sped by, the men brandishing sticks and machetes, their faces twisted with fury. Tears pricked her eyes. The memory of the old riots Hassan had spoken of came rushing back in living color. The fear, the smoke, the cries. And now David was caught in it. "Baba, we have to find him," Fatima pleaded, turning to her father. Her mother had corralled the little ones in a back room, trying to calm their whimpering. Alhaji Ibrahim looked torn, anguish in his eyes as screams echoed in the distance. "It's not safe to go anywhere now," he said grimly. "We must stay inside. I'm sure David will find a safe place to wait this out." But Fatima felt a surge of determination, stronger than fear. She imagined David alone and afraid, and something in her refused to sit and do nothing. Before her father could stop her, she threw a long scarf over her head and unlatched the gate. Hassan caught her at the doorway, eyes blazing. "Are you mad? You can't go out there." Fatima's voice shook, but was resolute. "I'm not leaving him out there, Hassan." Hassan cursed under his breath, glancing back at their father, who was momentarily distracted by a frantic knock from a neighbor at the back fence. Realizing he couldn't let Fatima run off alone, Hassan snatched a heavy flashlight as a makeshift baton and slipped outside with her. "Stay right beside me," he growled, locking the gate behind them. "We'll try to cut through the side alleys." The streets of their neighborhood, usually full of chatting traders and playing children, were eerily deserted. Shutters were clamped tight. In the distance, columns of smoke rose against the sky in multiple directions. The acrid smell of burning wood and rubber hung in the air. Fatima's stomach churned with dread, but she pressed on beside her brother. "Where would he be?" Hassan whispered urgently as they ducked down a narrow lane. Fatima thought hard. David's church was about 2 miles away, near a predominantly Christian quarter. If violence had broken out, that area would be extremely dangerous, likely one of the flashpoints. "Maybe he's sheltering at the church or somewhere nearby," she replied, voice hushed. "We should head in that direction and look for him along the way." They moved quickly through back streets, witnessing grim scenes: smashed shops, abandoned belongings, even a few families cowering in doorways and crying in fear. But they could not stop. They pressed on toward the Christian district. At last, as they neared the edge of the Christian area, signs of destruction were everywhere. An abandoned car burned on the side of the road, sending up thick smoke. Fatima and Hassan kept to the shadows along a wall, skirting the main road. Their caution paid off when they heard pounding footsteps nearby. A gang of young men running by, shouting slogans and looking for trouble. Brother and sister flattened themselves against the wall, holding their breath until that group passed. Fatima's chest ached with worry. She clutched Hassan's arm. We have to find him quickly, she whispered. Hassan nodded, jaw tight. In that moment, she knew he was as worried about David as she was, whatever he might have said before. Just then, from a narrow alley between a tailor shop and a locked pharmacy, they heard a familiar voice call out softly, "Fatima!" Fatima turned and nearly sobbed with relief. There in the shadows was David. He stepped forward, eyes wide with disbelief at seeing her. His shirt was torn and a dark smear of soot streaked across his forehead. But he was alive. "David!" Fatima rushed to him, and for a second, propriety forgotten, she threw her arms around him in a tight embrace. He winced, and she quickly pulled back, realizing he was hurt. A quick glance down showed a bloody gash on his left forearm where his sleeve was ripped. "What happened to you? Are you all right?" I'm okay," he panted, clearly exhausted. They attacked us at the church. We tried to get out. I ran." His voice cracked. "Some others. I don't know what happened to them." Fatima's eyes stung with tears, but Hassan cut in urgently. "We have to move. It's not safe here." He wrapped a strip of his handkerchief around David's bleeding arm. "Can you run?" David nodded, though he swayed on his feet. Fatima took his uninjured arm over her shoulders, helping to steady him. Together, they turned and began retracing their path toward the relative safety of home. They hurried through the shadows, and at last, their own street came into sight. Fatima felt a surge of relief. Home was near. But 3 young men with sticks suddenly emerged ahead, blocking their way. She recognized them as neighborhood boys. Their eyes fell on David and hardened with immediate suspicion. "Who is that with you?" one of them demanded, stepping forward aggressively. Hassan moved in front of Fatima and David. "He's the Corper teacher staying with us," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "He's under our protection. Let us pass." The youth in front, a hot-headed boy named Sani from down the street, sneered at them. "Why bring him here? Didn't his people attack us today? They burned our mosque." His friends began to fan out, anger blazing in their faces. Before anyone could blink, one of the youths lunged and yanked David hard by his shirt. David stumbled, too weak to resist. Fatima and Hassan both rushed forward to pull the attacker away. Fatima was shoved down hard onto the dirt, and Hassan took a rough blow to his side and crumpled to the ground. As Fatima scrambled up, her vision spinning, she saw Sani raising a heavy stick over David's head. Her heart seized in terror. This was the nightmare they had feared. In that instant, a commanding voice thundered, "Sani, stop this at once." Alhaji Ibrahim strode into the fray, his walking stick raised high. 2 older neighbors were at his heels. Startled, Sani released David, who collapsed back against a wall, gasping for breath. "This man is my guest," Alhaji Ibrahim said fiercely, planting himself between David and the youths. "Have you lost all decency? Our faith does not permit harming an innocent under my roof." His eyes blazed at the young men. The elder neighbors flanking him nodded sternly. Sani hesitated, the fury in his expression faltering. The other youths glanced at one another, uncertainty creeping in now that respected elders stood before them. In that tense standstill, the wail of sirens suddenly rose and the glare of headlights swept across the end of the street. Security forces were finally arriving to enforce a curfew. At the sight of soldiers in trucks rumbling closer, Sani and his friends exchanged alarmed glances. With a final hateful look in David's direction, they turned and bolted into the dark. They were gone. Fatima realized She had been holding her breath and let it out in a shaky exhale. Her father lowered his stick and turned to the three of them. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice gentler now that the danger had passed. Fatima gave a numb, grateful nod and rushed to David's side. Leaning on her shoulder, David managed to whisper, "Thank you, sir," to Alhaji Ibrahim. Alhaji Ibrahim simply placed a steady hand on David's back and guided everyone toward the gate. "Come," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "Let's go home." Under the hazy night sky, they slipped back into the compound. They were bruised and shaken, but alive. The worst night of their lives was finally ending, and dawn was just a few hours away. Morning came to Kaduna, quiet and somber. The riots ebbed, leaving charred ruins and heavy hearts in their wake. In the days that followed, the city slowly began to heal. Neighbors emerged to check on each other, sharing water, food, and comfort where they could. Stories of bravery spread. One tale in particular moved everyone: how Alhaji Ibrahim had faced down a mob to protect the young Christian teacher staying under his roof. Many who heard it felt hope that humanity could prevail over hate. Within Fatima's family, the ordeal forged stronger bonds. Hassan, once so wary, now treated David like a brother. They would sit together in the evenings with the family, sipping hot tea and chatting freely, the old tensions gone. Fatima often watched them with gratitude, her heart full as she reflected on how far they all had come. Under the same vast sky that had witnessed the worst of days, life found its rhythm again. Fatima and David still spent some evening outside, sometimes talking, sometimes simply gazing quietly at the Kaduna skies above. A sky wide enough for both of them, as it always had been. Despite all the fear and fury that had swept through their lives, their friendship endured, a quiet light guiding them forward under those Kaduna skies.